Marine Le Pen and the struggle to be France's president. Marine Le Pen's political awakening came at the age of 8, when she survived a bombing at her family's Paris home. 5 kilograms of dynamite had been placed on the landing outside the apartment at 9 Villa Poirier. The explosion ripped open the entire front of the building. A baby in the next-door flat fell 5 floors and was saved by the branches of a tree. In her autobiography, the woman who took over the leadership of France's National Front, FN, from her father describes the chaos, the smoke and debris. She and her 2 sisters were on our knees shivering, holding hands, praying with the fervor of despair when we heard the voice of our father shouting, "Girls, girls, are you alive?" The mystery of who tried to kill Jean-Marie Le Pen and his family on the night of November 1, 1976 is still unsolved. At the time the FN was just 4 years old, a fringe party of the far right including some on the anti-Semitic extreme. For Marine Le Pen the attack changed everything. The family home was destroyed. She lost school friends, whose parents were too scared now to let them near her dangerous father. More profoundly she came to understand that she and her family were different, they would never be treated as normal people. Instead of sympathy, there was hostility. Today Marine Le Pen is often described as having a hard exterior. After everything she went through in her youth, she built herself a shell, says her friend and senior FN colleague Steve Brea is. Pejorative adjectives like puissant, brittle, and clivant, divisive, are commonly applied. But at heart there is that emotional toughness, a determined self-reliance whose origins surely lie in the difficult psychological conditions of her childhood. Without that toughness, she could not have pushed the FN to its current unprecedented heights. She now has a genuine chance of winning the French presidency. And without that toughness she could certainly not have achieved the act that made that success possible, the symbolic killing of her father. On a Friday evening in France's rural East, Marine Le Pen has taken her election campaign to a community hall in the small town of Clairvaux-les-Lacs. Before a mainly working class, mainly middle-aged audience of 300, she develops the themes at the heart of her party's 144-point manifesto, from prioritizing jobs for French nationals to automatic expulsion of undocumented immigrants. Marine Le Pen talks with practiced confidence. In a previous life she was a lawyer who defended in the Paris courts the sort of immigrants she now wants expelled. This is her 6th year as leader of a party traditionally seen as far-right. It is also her second tilt at the presidency. She won 3rd place with nearly 18% in 2012. That bettered anything her father achieved, even in 2002, when he came second to Jacques Chirac on an anti-immigrant, law and order platform. Even more is expected of her now. Watching Marine in action, you can understand the appeal. There is a hint of the everywoman about her. People like the lived-in, authentic persona, the sense she gives of combining hard work with the aura of someone who knows how to have a good time. A political player in France for years, her message, anti-immigration, anti-EU, is consistent and unchanged. Out here in the sticks, people adore the fact that she is so hated by the establishment in Paris. Marie knows Jean-Marie. In daughter as in father there is the same pugnacity, ready for a scrap with a hostile world. There is the same plain-speaking humor, the French call it l'orgueil. To cheers, she declares. There are 2 things I want to give back to you, the people. Your voice. And your money! Marine Le Pen. Then there is the physical resemblance, with the strong features and the blonde hair. Marine was the 3rd and last Le Pen daughter, and her parents may well have been hoping for a boy. Today Marine's mother Pierrette says her daughter is just like Jean-Marie with long hair. Jean-Marie himself puts it more crudely, she is me with breasts! But today Marine and her father are entirely estranged. The rift is not a charade to help along her political career. It is a total breakdown. The pair have not spoken for more than 2 years. In this family, politics is stronger than blood, says journalist Olivier Beaumont, author of a book on the Le Pens. Jean-Marie could not bear to see someone else, even his own daughter, taking control of the party he had created and controlled for 40 years. It was like a Greek tragedy unfolding, and it ended like a Greek tragedy, in a symbolic parasite. Olivier Beaumont, journalist. She did an honorable thing, argues Marine's close friend Jean-Lynne Lecapelle. For the sake of politics and for the sake of France, she did the hardest thing a child can do, she cut the cord with her father. The final break came in April 2015, when in an interview on French radio Jean-Marie Le Pen did what Marine had long feared he would do. He repeated le detail. Mention le detail to anyone in the National Front today and their face hardens. They know exactly what it means. In September 1987 a dark moment became a turning point in the party's history. In their biography of the man, Pierre Péan and Philippe Cohen call it the day Le Pen became Le Pen. He was asked in an interview about a notorious Holocaust denier. Did he share the man's ideas? In his reply, the FN chief was at his ambiguous worst. I do not say that the gas chambers did not exist. I never personally saw them. I have never particularly studied the issue, but I believe they are a point of detail in the history of World War II. Jean-Marie Le Pen never escaped from the aftershock of that remark, downplaying the Holocaust. It was a gift to his enemies, who now had evidence that the FN was anti-Semitic. Worse, Jean-Marie reacted to the hostility by digging in further. Over the years there were further verbal provocations, and he amassed more than 15 separate convictions in the courts. Then came the 2015 interview and he said the detail all over again. Marine Le Pen looked on with horror. She disassociated herself from the remarks. Over the years she had become increasingly convinced that her father was incapable of winning power. Worse, maybe he never wanted power. In 2002 Marine had observed with satisfaction her father's first-round success in the presidential race. But what left more of an impression was his utter wipeout in round 2. With just 17.8% to Jacques Chirac's 82.2%, Jean-Marie had barely made any advance at all from his first-round score. Voters had united against him. Jean-Marie Le Pen's miserable result in the 2007 election, fourth place on 10.4%, set the seal on his decline. Maybe his real raison d'etre was to be a perpetual gadfly on the back of the French body politic, irritating but irrelevant. Time and again after she was elected as FN leader in 2011, Marine Le Pen would make clear her desire to normalize the party and make it electable. But time and again Jean-Marie grabbed the headlines with incendiary statements. After his repeat of le detail in 2015, he was suspended by the party and soon expelled, though technically he remains its honorary president. A family political drama had reached its climax. The very qualities he had inculcated in Marine by example, the cussedness, the pugnacity, the refusal to back down, were turned against him. Now Marine Le Pen is everywhere, and so are her lieutenants. As the presidential election draws near, Florian Philippot, Nicolas Bay, David Rockline, her partner Louis Alliot, and a handful of others saturate the morning TV talk shows. They are practiced, presentable, professional. Philippot, her close advisor, has his own YouTube channel where he appears in an office kitchen dubbed the Marine Café, railing against the latest factory closure or European free trade deal. For years the party's far-right views were regarded by the French media as toxic, but the boycott is history. A few years ago when I first interviewed Marine Le Pen, I got a kind of frisson with the hairs sticking up at the back of my neck. I felt I was flirting with the untouchable, says journalist Elizabeth Levy. So is it truly a party like any other? Ask most observers, and they will say that the process of de-diabolization, de-demonization, is genuine and more or less complete. The older generation with nostalgia for the collaborationist wartime Vichy regime, or for France's colonial rule of Algeria, has moved on. Racist comments are outlawed and people who make them are chased from the FN. In 2010, before being elected leader, Marine Le Pen was roundly criticized after comparing Muslims praying in the street to the German occupation. Now she has softened her tone, saying she does not regard Islam as incompatible with French democracy. The FN has also tried to build bridges with the Jewish community. Meanwhile across the West, other nationalist parties, in Germany, the Netherlands and elsewhere, have emerged which make the FN much less of a French exception. Events to have worked in the FN's favor. The jihadist attacks on Paris and Nice are part of it. But just as much is the popular disillusionment with the Paris and Brussels elites, and the growing fear of what they call in France le déclassement, the loss of economic and social status. People feel poor. We treat the FN like we would any other politicians, says Beatrice Houchard, who covers the party for L'Opinion newspaper. No favors, but nor do we go out of our way to find something negative to say. And with acceptance has come electoral success. After victories in municipal, European and regional elections, Marine can arguably claim to lead the country's most popular political party. Such an idea would have been laughable just a few years ago. We are now the #1 party among the youth. We are the #1 party for the working class. We are the #1 party for farmers. Jean-Lyn Lecapelle. We are making big gains in the civil service, continues Lecapelle, Marine Le Pen's close friend. In the police and army, and we are not doing badly among small business owners. We represent a cross-section of France. But unlike nationalist parties in some other countries, the FN does not do well among the over 65s. And if normalization of the party is complete, why does a shadow still persist over the FN's name? Do the words National Front and Le Pen have a perpetual power to alienate? Its critics strenuously argue the party's ethos is unchanged. For Laurent Geoffrin, editor of left-wing daily Liberation, the FN still favors the insider and scapegoats the outsider. Today the implicit accusation they direct at Muslims is exactly the same as the one they used to direct at Jews. Laurent Geoffrin, editor of Liberation. That these people are in some essential way different, and therefore dangerous to national unity, he says. The persistent accusation is that in its modern, normalized form the party is not being entirely frank, that in private, members are far more bigoted than they ever let on openly, and that their public discourse is in some way coded. Veteran commentator Alain Duhamel, who has covered every presidential election since 1965, says the FN still has an indirect